Just going live. There we go. You're live. Okay. So excellent. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming today. Nice turnout. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the candidates for coming as well. Really appreciate your time. And it's really nice to get to know, for the locals to get to know everything you stand for. So just a quick rules for tonight and just a quick overview of how it works. As Greg said, we've handed out question sheets to everyone. The reason we do that is it's nice, not so we can moderate them or try not to ask particular questions. It's mainly just to make it easier so we can read out the questions so people can hear them online as well. So the way we'll work tonight is initially we'll have a little introduction from each candidate. That'll be 3 minutes. And just to make it fair, the order of all speaking tonight is random. We don't pick people in any particular order, so that's all been predetermined. After those 3 minutes from each candidate, we'll then go into the questions. We'll read out the question as to what that you've all placed, and then each candidate will have 1 minute to answer those questions. Questions-wise, I'm sure we've got them already, have we? We've got them, yeah. So we could try and keep them brief and straight to the point. And if we do take any questions from the floor, we'd appreciate it if they're just nice, clear questions without too many opinions. And from the candidates also, thank you for answering the questions. We would appreciate it if maybe it's not so pertinent, it's civil. I'm sure everyone's friendly here, so it should be fine. Timing-wise, we've explained the timing sheet, so hopefully you understand from the minute point of view. And then at the end of the evening, hopefully we'll get through about 15, maybe a few more questions, depending on time. And then at the end, we'll have a 2-minute summation from each candidate just to kind of give their closing remarks. We will be recording tonight, so it is available for people online to view for the next few weeks as well. Okay, any questions at all from anyone regarding how this works tonight? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get into introducing the candidates now, and we'll give them, we do have the 4 candidates here tonight. Probably I'll just can everyone see the boards here? So we've got Joshua Fairhall for the Independent for Oxley, we've got Michael Kemp for the Nationals, Troy Owen is an Independent, and Dominic King for the Greens. So I'd like to just invite you all to introduce yourselves now, and we'll start with Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Mert. And I think it's important to get to understand who all the candidates are, and I congratulate them all on standing. It's a daunting thing at times, but it's something that we can help our communities with. So I'm a proud country boy, and I was born up in Clay to a 6th-generation farming family. My parents and my grandparents were both active community members, including membership in the Show Society executive committees. Their service and work ethic instilled in me a love of this region and built a solid foundation for my community work. We're a country family. My kids all drive on the farm, take themselves fishing, and live an outdoor life. I'm a Defence Force veteran, starting my service in the Army Reserve at an infantry unit before transferring to the Air Force, straight into an operational unit. I've served 3 tours of duty, 1 in the Middle East, and 1 in East Timor. I'm not reading, I'm just going off script. 1 in East Timor and 2 in the Iraq theatre in the Middle East. I'm a volunteer firefighter with the Rural Fire Service at brigade level, as well as a remote area firefighter at district level. And what that means is that if we get a lightning strike out in the bush, we jump in the helicopters, go up, winch down, and try and put it out before it gets too big. And I wish they allowed us to do that in 2019. I was also named 2021 Macleay Australia Day Volunteer of the Year for my work in building shelters for bushfire victims. I'm a physiotherapist who has built a thriving healthcare business. We have 2 locations across the region serving our community, including the aged care sector, which I think is really important. As an active member of this community, I've got employees to pay, with kids to be educated and a wife to grow old with. I believe in listening to our people, being a voice of reason, and acting with care and common sense. I do think a politician's job is to listen, to stand for what the majority of people believe in, what our voters to believe to be in their best interest, and importantly, to ensure that we also protect the vulnerable. I've got a few points that are important to me. So healthcare is really important, and I think we struggle with access to GPs, allied health and specialists here in the regions. Although it's a federal issue, I think it's really important to address. We can also address it from the state level as well. The rules on how far rural a GP needs to go to contribute during their registrar placements have been relaxed by the current federal government. And I think some of those people who, rather than going to Dorrigo, Comboyne, Kempsey, or further afield, they can now go to Wollongong on the Central Coast. And I'll be encouraging, if I'm elected, to absolutely put pressure on our federal government, as well as provide incentives from the state government level. 9 rate rises in 9 months. I know it's hitting all of our back pockets. And the cost of living pressures to families we are facing, it's becoming critical. We need to immediately bring policies to help struggling households. And I think these might include decreasing power bills through cheaper energy production, more saving schemes, such as the Regional Seniors Travel Card or the Apprentice and Students Travel Card, or some of the 70+ cost of living measures available to Service New South Wales. And the Great Koala National Park, where do I start? A city policy delivered by city bureaucrats and politicians to an electorate up here. How does that work? Tell me this isn't a policy aimed at pacifying city-based voters with no knowledge of how things work in the bush. I'm all for protecting the species, but also with a balance. The New South Wales Nationals and Liberals have confirmed that if we win government, there will be no new taxes.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got Josh here now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Fettle, and I'm completely unscripted. What I'm saying to you all tonight is from the heart. There's no scripts here whatsoever. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We've got 4 great candidates here. Everyone's got something positive to bring to the table. I'm from Kempsey, originally from Barraville. I've got family that live here in Wauchope, the Dietrich family, if anybody knows them. Used to own the factory second store here in town a few years ago. I own the Bi-Rite store in West Kempsey, and I also own the furniture store in West Kempsey. I'm standing here tonight because I'm sick of the party corruptions in government on both sides. I've had a gutful. We're all paying enough tax. We deserve to have some honourable people in government, and I'm not seeing that at the moment on either side. I'm standing for more police in our electorate. I want better roads for all of our towns. And I also, I do have just written down business support. I do apologise, I'm a little nervous. Business support. Businesses around here are crippling. I don't know if you've seen it, there's empty shops everywhere. I'm in business. I know it's very tough, not only from a staff point, but the cost of doing business has dramatically increased over the last couple of years. So I'm standing for a fresh change, an independent change. I'm not associated with any political party of any description, and I want to bring a positive change and actually fix the problems in our electorate. So choose wisely, because you've got 4 completely different directions that this can all go. So think very carefully about who you choose tonight, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We've got Dominic now.
Thank you, everyone, for turning up. It's great to see people interested in democracy. And I'd like to start actually by acknowledging that we are meeting today on the lands of the traditional custodian of this country, the Dulgadi people, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I've lived in the Mid-North Coast for about 18 years, brought my daughters up about 10 kilometres out of Bellingen. I have a bit of a wide work history. I was a tradesman for about 13 years and then left that and went to university and studied a Bachelor of Science in Resource Environmental Management, and then did a graduate diploma to do a geography teacher, and I taught at Barraville for about 10 years. I've been in local government for 10 years, 5 years as the mayor and 5 years as a councillor. I'm also on the board of Local Government New South Wales, which is an elected body that is a lobby group for local government, because local government sits under the state government, and that's, our funding comes through them. And I think we're well underfunded for the amount of work that we need to do. I'm also on the New South Wales Water Directorate, which looks after our safe and secure water and sewage for all our towns, which is a very important factor. The 3 things that I'm bringing to this election are, one is obviously the cost of living and particularly housing. We've never seen it so bad. We've never seen people living in cars. We've never seen people who are working can't find accommodation. And this is because of the policies of the former government. So we really need a change around that. We're also seeing record profits from big corporations like Qantas and Woolies and Coles and the developers. We're starting to see them. They're all making lots and lots of money. Everyone else is struggling to put food on the table, to pay their energy bills. So we want to flip that around. The Greens want them to start to pay their share. We want to see a super profit tax. The other thing that we're doing is obviously as Greens we're very worried about the state of the natural environment, and we know that after the 2019 bushfires that we lost large parts of our forests. We know how vital they are for our river systems, and we know that rivers are the lifeblood of our towns. We want to ensure that we are protecting those natural assets because they are the things into the future that people will come to these regions for. They are so important for our agriculture, and they're so important for tourism and all the other economy that goes with that. And the third thing that we're standing for, which is where is my local government experience in particular, is changing the planning laws. The planning laws at the moment are so pro-developer that they can get away with whatever they like. They're not paying their way in terms of their contribution, their developers' contribution towards what's going on. There's no mechanism for them to start to provide social housing and affordable housing. And we're seeing that exploding across places like Southwest Rocks, where there is just development after development after development with no healthcare to go with that. So the Greens really want to stop that. We want to see developers starting to contribute to the community, and we want community to have a voice. At the moment, any development over $30 million goes to the Joint Regional Planning Panel, and that has got 3 state reps and 2 local. I'd like to see that flipped. I'd like to see 4 local people and 3 on that. So they're the 3 points that we're standing on. And if anyone's interested in the Greens policies, they can just Google Greens New South Wales, and all our policies are laid out. You won't see that from any of the other parties. We're really open about what we're going to say.
Thank you.
G'day, I'm Troy. We moved up to just east of Kempsey, had a big wet swampy paddock, trade and breed a few cattle, some horses, some working dogs. My partner works in aged care at Southwest Rocks. I come down this way pretty regular. I've worked out at Long Flat and Yarras, out Rollins Plains, and then we come down to the Wauchope sale. And when we come down, we did the produce stores and a few things. So familiar with the area. I got around and I asked what the issues were. But first of all, I went to the Nationals with a few issues that I thought we could do some work with, and I just was absolutely disgusted with the reception I got and the treatment and the failures. And then basically I got the impression that they were just all for their paymasters and not residents or our environment or anything. So from that, I become active. Actually, delivery of solutions. Money. We can't do anything without money. So we bring us the money into our electorate, and we're not just regarded as a safe seat or what's expected that the Labor will win the state election, and then they won't be worried about us at all because we're a safe national seat. So I'm in there after money, after solutions, and then making sure delivery of those things for all the things that have merit. Now, a gentleman spoke to me about a sports stadium about here that was promised 4 years ago. The police, we had a second rural crime police re-announced by the Nationals 3 times, and it's still a phantom. There's 47 police in the northern area off on stress leave, morale's through the floor. Everybody's come to me at Wauchope and then Bucket, and they want more police. I went and asked police, and they said we need about 8 more police for a patrol car to go 24/7. So we need to find 8 houses for them, and we're not going to do that if we don't have the accommodation there. So all these things we can work on. It's a great area. I love it. I really just wanted to come up here and, you know, trade some cattle and go fishing. There's a job to do. I've been brought in to do a few other big jobs before in the past. I ran one of the biggest cattle properties in New South Wales, about 7,000 cows. I ran a lot of good workers at an abattoirs. I was a marketing manager for an investment company in North Sydney. Got really well paid with Hartos, an accountancy firm. So I've been blue collar, I've been white collar, I've been a worker, I've been on management, I've had a family. I've been, unfortunately, my lovely wife got postnatal depression and been through the life's mincer. So I think I come with a lot of experience, and really, as I said, it's about securing the money. It's about making sure that we deliver projects that have merit. We don't want any more money like from the bushfire fund put into a skinny skydiving pool up at Kempsey. We want the money spent well, and we want a result. So that's what I'm here for, making sure that we get our infrastructure, our services, and also obviously environment. We can have both. We're really good at growing trees, so we can have lots of trees and koalas. Nationals haven't built a dam in 34 years. Yep, the Nationals haven't built and how many trees have they got in the ground for sustainable forestry? Every scheme they've put up has been.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Joe's got a lot to say, so we'll get a chance to say it now. So we'll move on to the questions now. We'll get started. So I'm just going to hand over to Greg, who's going to organise the first question.
Thanks, Merv, and thank you, candidates. We're going to begin by taking 2 questions from the journalist who's covering the forum tonight. So if you would like to ask.
Hi, I'm Emily Walker. I'm from Hawkeye News and Clay Argus.
You might need to hold it close.
Yeah, so I can speak. So my first question would be for the candidates. Will you support the new government booking a full page of advertising every week to regional papers?
Oh, cool. You need the microphone.
I think I'd need a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, sure, I can give
Yeah,
a little bit more.
before I can commit to, because there's a lot of different tiers that we've got to go through. Yeah, it's not really up. I don't think that's a decision that any candidate can actually make. I think they've got their own departments that handle all the advertising and whatnot. So I'd like more information.
Who was next?
Troy.
Now the question was,
Will you support a new government booking a full page of advertisement every week to regional newspapers?
and paid with taxpayers' money.
Yes, it was a promise that Victorian election made, and it also is one that New South Wales Labor has.
Definitely not. What I've seen is the corruption of the local rags, and they're just propaganda machines. And our taxpayer money is going in for them to get themselves re-elected. And there's just no way I'd support our taxpayer money being used to prop up their propaganda with their dribble of good news stories. I find that the local rags are bought, and they only run good stories, especially about the Nationals in our area. So no way at all, because it's just abuse of taxpayers' money. It's not on. And I think I asked the Argus if they could please print on softer paper. It's yesterday's with the bias that we've got. We know the ABC is biased. We know the other media is biased. Not having it.
Thanks for
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the local rag, as we're calling it tonight, is important for the community, for some of our members who might not be able to transition to online media. I think it's a difficult question to answer because I'm a little bit like Josh. We do need a bit more information other than, I think it's a business and there are evidence of the industry being assisted by government at different times. But yeah, each paper has different, slants. And I think that the most important part is that we're able to get our community the news that they need and want. So for the shorter term, I think it's important to make sure that we have local newspapers available. It's a community-based service, and it is important to the community. right up through here, because we might not have good service out in Papenbarra or up on top of Mount Seaview where it was today. It's really important to make sure that we have the avenues to get the news out to our population.
Yeah, sure. Will you support the new government getting a full page of advertisement every week to regional newspapers?
They said they're going to do that.
So the Victorian, there was a statement promise from the Victorian during the Victorian election, and the New South Wales Labor, who is the new government that is in their position at the moment, has said they will commit $3 million of extra government advertising to regional papers if elected.
Yeah, look, what I would say, I totally agree with Michael in terms of the local paper. I think the local paper is really, really important, and it has been shown that local people will actually read from cover to cover because they want to hear those local stories. They want to see, stories about sports and stuff like that happening in the local area. And I think it's really important for democracies to have, to be able to somebody to write a letter. I think the government needs to support small local papers as well, because we know that they're not viable financially. And I know that local governments have to put all their ads through the local paper. So, look, I think that the government should support it. I don't know about 4 pages of ads every week. I think it's a bit over the top. But I think they absolutely need to be supported into the future, because I think we do rely on them in the regions. And if you're getting one paper that's covering the whole state, they're actually not starting to talk about what's going on in the community.
Your final question.
And my final question is, will you reverse the 2020 COVID-related change that allowed local councils in New South Wales to withdraw regular advertising of council news and notices in local papers? And a bit of background for this. So in late 2020, the state government made amendments to the local government regulations. So now councils only have to put notices in their of their activities and decisions on their website and not on local papers.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think, again, it's about getting information out to the community and allowing people to be aware of what's happening with developments. As an example, it's probably the hottest topic at the moment in South West Rock. So the more people that get knowledge of something that's going on that the community has an input to, which should be a lot with respect to local, state and federal government, I think is better. So should a council be allowed to tuck it away on its website? I'm not a fan at all. I think we should be pushing for a more open source, but I'm not quite sure on whether or not we definitely should advertise in the local paper. I think less people are getting their news from the local printed paper. So I think maybe we could look at a multitude of avenues for that.
Troy.
We have an ageing population. A lot of us grew up with papers. I used to read 6 papers a week, cover to cover. I went off papers when they got corrupted with National's money and the abuse of taxpayers' money, and we have a biased local media. I'm all in favour that people are informed, and part of your question is a yes. Council should put it in the paper. I agree with that, and it shouldn't be tucked away. So part of your question I do believe in, but I just think we have a real issue about the hijacking of taxpayers' money for a political purpose, and we've been dominated by the Nationals, and yet they've got the paper on the lead as far as I'm concerned. So it'd be great if we could have a competition amongst papers, and also if newspapers actually employed some proper journalists that wrote up some things. That'd
Just
be
go a
really
bit off topic here. Just maybe stick to the question.
it's part of it.
Don't get personal.
There's a responsibility for the paper to actually do some work themselves and employ journalists.
We're actually
Just finish that question now.
Thank
Who's
you.
next?
I'm just going to keep my answer short and sweet to this one. The short answer is yes, and I'm going to seek a full reversal of the mandates will stop, and then an ICAC inquiry about the whole thing, because the whole thing stinks. That's my answer, thank you.
Yeah, I'd absolutely support local government putting the ads back in the paper, and that would have been a state government decision to do that. It certainly wasn't a council by council decision. So I think it's really important, once again, that people get to see what's going on in council in their local paper, whether it's a DA, whether it's, you know, whether it's some new works that have been done. So I think absolutely I support that.
Thank you. I'm going to start off the back and I'll work my way around. I'll try and get to everyone. Was someone up here with a question? You want to ask it or do you want me to? Just hold it close.
There's quite a number of history, forestry. My question to all of you is, will you support the continuation of the native timber industry in New South Wales, both from state forests and private property landholders?
So Josh,
Yeah, I support a balance between the timber industry and the environment. I don't believe that someone's jobs should be sacrificed. I think we've got plenty of trees in our country and we've got plenty of places we can plant them. I support the timber industry entirely. I do also support the environment, but as I said, if it comes down to food, I'll pick a job and we can plant a tree elsewhere.
Look, the Greens actually want to see the end of native forest logging. We want to see a transition into plantation, sustainable plantation timber, and the Greens have suggested a $30 million package to do that. I think that's the future. I think native forest logging has not been producing money. It's lost over $9 million last year. I definitely understand the concern of the people about other workers, and that's why we're asking for a fair and just transition for the workers. I think there is opportunity to actually start to replant, and I would say the skill set that the forestry workers have is really highly regarded, and I think that we need to make sure that those forestry workers are working within the forest to improve that outcome. And I think what we saw in the 2019 bushfires was an example of what we're going to see into the future, and we know how much of that state forest got burned. And also, I would say, I hear a lot of times people saying, "Oh, the Greens have, destroyed the timber industry." The Greens have never had anything to do with the loss of jobs in the timber industry. That's happened because of because of money. So I would say, I think things like the Great Koala National Park, and there'll be work involved in that. There has been an economic study done by Newcastle Uni that shows that that's the way forward.
Yes, a really big yes. I support the timber industry. We're in a 60-inch rainfall or something. One thing we can do really well over in the coast is grow trees, and we can't grow them at Cobar real well. So we're in a really good growing tree area. So yes, sustainable and renewable product is our timber. It just needs to be managed correctly. It hasn't been managed. I think it's a really growth area, and the private landholders who have trees as part of their super package or to help put their children through education and everything, they should be getting some coin for having the habitat. So we can have cattle and we can have trees and we can have koalas and everything else that goes under that umbrella. We can have both, and we can do it very, very well. And we have a social responsibility that we produce our timber here, because if we cut it down in Borneo, the orangutan hasn't got a home. So we can do it, and I'm all for growing the timber industry, sustainable and renewable. And the reason it's not done is because the Nationals have failed us with every tree thing so far. It's true.
Yeah, I think my answer will be pretty succinct. The timber industry contributes $2.54 billion with 5,700 jobs in New South Wales. And I think that, a $30 million package may not cut that type of mustard. Not just jobs though, I think we can have a timber industry that also contributes to the conservation of all of our animals, not just the trigger species koalas. And when it comes to a super package, it takes at least 30 to 40 years to grow a tree. So it's a very long time, and who's going to pay the exorbitant amount of timber if you're waiting for timber if you're waiting for that long on one piece of land. So the answer is yes, I'll support a timber industry. I think we have to do it smart. We haven't always done it right, and we need to acknowledge that. And I think in the future, there's great governance now, and if we follow that governance, I believe that we can continue to have both the timber industry in a strong and financial position, as well as looking after our fauna. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back up the back and then move our way down. Do you want to read your question?
How would you vote for a policy to limit the time a DA can be active? In other words, would you stop zombie DAs as are at the moment destroying South West Rocks and other coastal towns? Thank you.
Troy.
Me first.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question, very important question. And having had experience down at South West Rocks, where we've had we've got ambushed and all these zombie DAs. Don't tell me that the state government didn't know that they're all coming at once. And we now have an over 55s gated community, not only in a watercourse, but in a swamp, right? That's what South West Rocks got. And all the bush they knocked down, we didn't even get to keep the money. They sent the money over the ranges. So all these zombie DNAs, no. And I've spoken at Crescent Head because they're under the same thing. And I said, we need representatives from all these splinter groups that's all concerned about their own little patch. We need representatives to come together to form an alliance, and then we need to direct the places that can handle the houses. We have to have the houses. We know that. We don't have to be trashed in the process. So thank you for your question. And no, the DAs, no way. Thank you. Zombie DAs, I'm anti-zombie.
Yes, I think obviously South West Rocks has been a hub at the moment, and the older the legislation, I think the less it fits with what we're doing today. And I think that there should be some sort of statute limit on it. It will need to be looked at in legislation within the new government. But certainly I would support a change and updating with what we are feeling these days, with some input from all parts of the community, as not just the developers, not just the state government, but all stakeholders with respect to the people on the ground.
That's a great question, and thank you very much for that. I was actually out at South West Rocks at 7 o'clock this morning, right outside the fence of a developer who was about to knock down a whole heap of trees for one house. Now that is disgraceful. I've got photos of it on my phone if you'd like to see it. It's been a very long day for me because I've been to South West Rocks at 7 o'clock, then Newcastle, and I'm here now. I categorically in support of abolishing zombie DAs full stop, and I also believe that those DAs need to be cross-checked by the local councils first, because how are they going to keep up with the infrastructure if they don't know it exists? Thank you.
I think zombie DAs absolutely need to be stopped. And, Kate Fan and our Upper House Greens MP has been driving this all the way up the coast, is concreting our coast paper that she released, showing that zombie DAs are happening everywhere and they're happening really quick. We also know that developers are making more money than they've ever made before, and there's no regard for community. This is based all in state planning law, which Michael's party is involved in. So when Michael says it needs to be looked at, it needs to be looked at by his party. And the reason that it is so pro-development is because the coalition are in bed with the developers. And so what we need is to empower communities again. We need the communities to actually start to have a say in what's going on in their towns and villages. And there needs to be, as I said very, very early on, there needs to be a higher contribution from developers. There also needs to be considerations around those services like health services, water, drinking, sewerage works and all that stuff, because we know places like Stewart's Point, every time it rains, they get, they've got sewage runs through the main street. So we've got to start getting things right before we start bringing more and more people into our areas, and then they will be destroyed for the very reason that people come here. That is because we live in such an amazing area. So development has got to be controlled through the state planning law.
Okay, I'll go off the back. I'm working my way back around. I'd just like to start with saying honesty is important, especially in politics, and the Great Barn National Park is actually a local community initiative, just to correct Michael Kemp over there. And as we know, the native forest logging industry is coming to an end because of mismanagement and overlogging. So what is your plan to transition workers from the logging industry into plantations? Dominic, I think you're next up.
Yeah, as I said earlier on, the Greens have put up our policy talking about what that transition would look like. Obviously, we would have to work with the timber industry and the timber workers to understand exactly what that looks like. We know that we're losing mills all the time, and it's not due to the Greens, it's due to, that we're not finding the logs. We know that the log size, average size, has gone from 70 centimetres to 30 centimetres, which shows that it's not sustainable the way that we're doing it now. I think softwood plantations, which are employing lots more people, or just plantations, are the way I think we absolutely need. It needs to look different. And we need more technology, and we need to be moving forward within that. Look a lot better and to start to value add those timber products.
Of all the forested land in New South Wales, there's only 10% in the state forests, of which 50% is conserved. That means 1% is available for harvest each year. I think it's not a lot of timber, and as Dominic said, we need timber. We are in agreement there. The state government's putting $190 million into koala conservation, and I think that that's the highest amount of a single species ever. And I think that the requirements to maintain the timber industry as well as look after our fauna is important.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to answer that question either, because I'm a supporter of the logging industry. Like I said, I'll pick a job over a tree because we can plant plenty more. The core problem here is that nobody's been supporting Australian manufacturing for quite a while. And that needs to change. In order for us to we can rebirth this industry. I don't think it's on its knees. I think it can well and truly regenerate itself. Trees do grow. Look, I'm not so sure that I'm the right person to ask that question to, because I'm not in support of that at all. I think that the guys that have done it all their lives, all the loggers, the timber mill people, they've done it for generations, and they're going to continue doing it for generations. So I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you on that question.
Righto, champion up the back. For a start, the timber industry is not going anywhere except it's going to grow, right? Especially over here on the coast and this area like here with our rainfall. And there's more trees in our area now than what there's been for a long time, simply because we're not using them for firewood. If you go back 50 years, that sort of thing, there was a lot more clear paddocks that we did. We had nowhere near the regrowth that we have now. So there's actually more trees, but there's not the. Get up in a helicopter, whirlybird, have a look, mate. There's trees everywhere until the big bushfire, right? Now the thing is, they're not the right trees. Now, if you go to the Greens thing and you want radiata pine, a monoculture of an introduced species, well, that's just a desert for any of our native flora and fauna, right? So we have to get busy planting the trees that the Nationals should have been planting 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, so we can have both. We can have sustainable, renewable timber industry and we can have all the native animals, and private landholders have to be rewarded for retaining their habitat.
Okay, another one up the back, at the bar table. You're gonna ask it yourself?
Sorry, you got flipped there. Yeah, sorry.
My question's in regards to hospital services. So the people of Oxley who live in the Hastings rely very heavily on the Port Macquarie-based hospital infrastructure for critical health services. So this technically falls under the Port Macquarie State MP, who the people of Oxley don't have any say in. If you're elected and you have different political views to whoever is elected for Port Macquarie, how would you work productively with them, despite your differences, to deliver hospital improvements or hospital service improvements for the people of the Hastings?
Thank you. Dominic?
Look, I think it's a really good question, because that is one of the difficult things that we see, I think, in state government and probably federal politics, where we're seeing politicians from all sides not willing to work with each other. I think what you see in local government is very, very different. And one of the reasons that I think local government can get across a lot of the stuff that we do is because we do work with each other. So when I was the mayor, I worked with lots of National Party mayors and Labor Party mayors, and also on the board of local government New South Wales. That's a mixed bag. I'm more than happy to speak to anyone about what's needed, but I'd be saying that I'd be speaking to the nurses as well, the nurses union, about what the needs are. And I think it's a really critical area. And I know a lot of my nursing friends are so tired, and so many people are thinking about leaving the profession. I think we're actually in another crisis. I know Michael keeps saying that we're back online. And I'm hearing nurses coming to me all the time saying, I can't believe he's saying that the hospitals are back. So I think you just need to do the right thing. And I think things like education, health are really, really important, and they should be bipartisan agreements on that stuff.
Just a quick correction there. I don't believe I've ever said hospitals are back online, nor have I intimated that. So in regards to working with anyone, I'm actually on the reference group for re-envisaging the admissions to our emergency departments, and we've got a wonderful new program from the Tweed to the Hastings, so to Port Macquarie, and it's been a wonderful experience working with a multidisciplinary, multi-political sphere, and I'm really proud to have been on that team. What it's resulted in is a chatbot and a phone number, and a different stream of how you can get into EDs. It's been released in Port Macquarie, and it's about to be released further up in Kempsey and Wauchope over the next month. And it's wonderful to be with. And I think those types of reference groups, those multifaceted groups, are where you get the best work done, and you're helping the most people in the community.
Right. Now, the lady with the question mentioned Port, and I've had first-hand experience down at Port through the medical system. I brought up the leg by a horny cow, and I've seen it as a patient. And then I think you've got to understand that Wauchope is very important, and we've had experience of going through Wauchope as a patient, and also Kempsey and the wound care and everything, and terrific. The people that work in this health industry are absolutely fantastic. Now, they're overwhelmed and they're being flogged. I spoke to my doctor today, who actually gave me a good bill of health, mentally and physically. There you go. And she's brought in some doctors. And she said to me, like, from India, they churn doctors out like sausages, right? There's heaps of doctors. There's red tape bringing them in, and there's not good enough governance to make them that we hold them here for at least 5 years. The government's been slack, and the doctors are all. Narrabri lost 2 doctors this week. One got hijacked to go to Dubbo, another one where else. We can have the doctors and we can have the nurses. We need to provide the housing for them, and then we need to hang on to them. So the health is very important, But let's not forget Wauchope and Kempsey.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Health and emergency services are basically part of my fundamental core. I'm here to work for you. I'm not here to work for a party. So I want to make that very, very clear. Now, I don't know what's going on down here because I'm yet to receive a response from the Liberal Party, but you guys have a Liberal member and a national candidate. Now, that's going against the coalition agreement, which I'm yet to receive an answer as to why.
Not here, we don't.
Yes, you do.
Only
Sorry, no, in Port Macquarie.
And
Yes.
she was a national at the last election.
Yes, but she's a Liberal now.
Jump ship.
She's a Liberal member now, and you have a Nationals candidate. Now, to
Has
me,
nothing to do with us. What's that got to
no,
do with you?
no. I'm just explaining to you that you guys got your own problems down there. I'm happy to work with anybody. As I said, health, education, and emergency services are the fundamentals of my core. That's it. Thank you.
I'm coming back down to you guys. I'll take one from the lady in the blue.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for this opportunity to meet the candidates. I'm very surprised that there isn't somebody's missing here tonight, and I assume we're going to have a Labor candidate. But my question, fellas, is you have a massive task ahead of you. You're going to be having to work with at least 4, I would imagine, different local government areas, from Convoy right through to Dorrigo. And my question to you is, how do you think you're going to look after all of us? Because Wauchope and Hastings, we've been on the back foot for a long time. In local government, we're a port-centric local government. We have representatives here for our seat of Oxley, which has got this massive job, and the same with our federal electorate. So I will take my hat off to somebody who can actually look after all of us successfully.
Thanks, Jeanette.
I'll tell you how I will get around to all the people. So I've actually taken 6 months off. I've drawn down on my mortgage with my wife's consent and my family's backing. And I'm travelling probably 1,700 k's a week or thereabouts. I have been to every little corner just about of this Hastings Valley. I've been to Papenbarra, I've been to Mount Seaview, I've been to Convoy, I've been to Byerbarra, I've been to Longflat, I've been to Beechwood, I've been to the Hatch, I've been to Blackman's Point, I've been to Wauchope multiple times. Actually, I've been to Convoy multiple times. I've been down Lawn Road, and the list goes on to Rollins Plains, etc. So I will put my heart and soul into this electorate. I live, breathe and bleed, for want of a better cliche, this area. And I believe that I have demonstrated that to you so far in this election campaign. And I will continue to put my best foot forward and represent this area to the best of my ability.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's a fair distance between Dorrigo and right out the back of Wauchope, right down to the electorate boundaries. Look, it's nothing like the federal boundary. The federal boundary is much bigger, and it has twice the amount of population, and that's being handled by quite a capable Nationals member. Look, I'm based in Kempsey. I live in Kempsey. I'm just building a house at Fredericton, right on the freeway there. 3 minutes off the freeway. It's not far for me to go either direction. I'll make sure there's an office available for anybody that wants to call, pop in at any time. It's a fundamental difference to what we have had over the last year in particular. Getting a hold of our former member was impossible. He was at home, basically regurgitating the health advice from home. Now, while businesses all around us were suffering, all I can say is look forward and do the best I can, and I'll quite happily take it from anybody who says that I'm not doing a good job. Thank you.
Well, I'm used to big acres and every time you get around the seat of Oxley gets a bit smaller, I'll be running an open door policy. I don't intend to do it on my own at all. I'll build a team around me so that I've got people that can work with me to make the delivery. So it won't just be me, but it'll be an open door policy. And the problems that you have are just identical to what they have in Nambucca. So if you fix the fix for Nambucca is the same fix for Wauchope. Southwest Rocks has the same problems as Crescent Head. You'd be surprised how these problems just repeat themselves all over. So I think the area is shrinking all the time. I've been to Combine, I've been up to Dorrigo, been all around, and you would be surprised just how the problems in each area are so similar. So we can fix it. I don't intend to fix it alone, and I'll use the example that we have other independents out there that have been doing a terrific job, like Roy Butler with Barwon, a huge area, but he's managing it.
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, and I think people don't understand that local government sits under state government, so it's their legislation and local government enacts it. And I think there's great opportunity for state government to start funding local councils to the correct measure that they need to. We know that the metro councils spend more in fireworks than we do on our roads. We need to change the funding model, and I think there's great opportunity for us to work right across Oxley, bringing those local councils together. And there is a thing called a joint organisation, and I was in that with Port Macquarie and Kempsey. Nambucca opted out. And we did some great work around affordable housing. We did some great work around koalas and opportunities for coming together to deal with waste. So I think the opportunities are there. I think we need local decisions though, and I think those local decisions need to be respected. And that's why we've got such great local councils. And I would say that, as I said before, I've been in local government for 10 years. It is really poorly paid. A councillor gets $12,000 a year in Bellingen and a mayor gets $40,000. That shows the commitment that people are, that put their hand up to be local government councillors if they care about their community. And I think I've shown that in the last 10 years.
About this table here. We are in a situation now where public education is in crisis. We have teachers quitting more than they are retiring. Many teachers cannot find full-time work. They're on short-term contracts, thus making it hard to secure loans, perhaps for personal things like cars, etc. There's chronic underfunding for our public education system. I would really like to know what the gentleman's individual and party's policies would be to fix this critical problem. Michael.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, having kids at school, I'm really interested in the education system, and obviously lots of education workers are parents themselves, and I have a lot of friends in the area. So I think that if we started from a bottom-up approach, the New South Wales Nationals have recently announced the Universal Pre-Kindy, which is a fantastic trial with 71 sites around the state, of which 10 are in Oxley, focused in the Nambucca and Macleay Valleys. I think the other part of the Nationals policy is increasing teacher numbers by 10,000 over the next 4 years to take off the strain of the chronic burden of work. Also, the fact that there's actually a lower percentage of vacancies in the state school system than has been reported. And the biggest one that I think is really important is, we have lost some of the luster with respect to TAFE, and there's been a focus previously on university. And I think that the announcement of 120,000 places this year for TAFE places to be fully fee paid should be able to help to get our apprentices and the building sector back on target.
Keith, can I just get you to just ask that question again, if you don't mind, mate?
Summing it up.
Sure.
The question in summary was, what would the parties and the gentlemen, what would their policies be on the critical underfunding for our public schools, which is in crisis?
So we're just referring to public schools, not the whole education sector?
Public schools, yes.
Okay. Well, firstly, the mandates saw a lot of teachers surrender their jobs. That needs to be undone straight away. These guys have dedicated their lives to teaching, and these mandates saw them basically decide not doing this anymore. Now, I know quite a number of those teachers. That needs to be, first of all, undone straight away. That's going to ease a lot of the pressure straight away. Now, as for the funding, I need to know a little bit more information about how short it is, what they're proposing, because we don't know which side's going to get in yet. We don't know whether it's going to be Labor or Liberal. So it's very, very hard for me to give you an accurate answer on that without knowing that first. As far as childcare goes, Michael just touched on that. The Nationals have announced they're going to be funding a lot of their own centres, but there are a lot of private centres that are about to hit the wall. There's a critical shortage of funding in the private sector for childcare. That's something that desperately needs addressing as well. Thanks.
I'm hearing exactly the same stories, and I was a teacher for 10 years, as I said, at Barraville Central School, and then did some casual before that. I know there's a lot of teachers that have had enough. I think education is really, really important. The Greens are pushing for a 15% increase in their wages because there was a cap on the public services, so people have fallen further behind. Also, more time out of the classroom to plan lessons. And I know, as a teacher myself, that we never had a desk. We never needed a desk because we were always on our feet. I know in the old days, people were able to sit down and do their work and do the marking. Those things have changed now. There's big expectations for children about what they actually need to be educated on. So I think we need more support in the classrooms. We absolutely need to bring more teachers in. We need TAFE to be actually free, again, like it was once upon a time, and we need those TAFE teachers to be brought up to the same conditions as the public service teachers as well. And I think what we do need is that funding to move away from the private sector and be put back into the public system so that we can have those schools that are performing really, really high, because it is the most important thing that we do for our children, is to give them a good education and find out, what is their niche.
Well, unless you live under a rock, you'd realise that the LNP have been trying to privatise education for a long time. I've got about 8-year history trying to save TAFE, and it's not only the teachers that are on these short-term contracts, it's also all their admin staff. So it's not just permanent jobs for teachers, it's also permanent and secure employment for all the admin staff, right the way through to the cleaners and the bus drivers, all of them. If we look at the example of Coffs Harbour, where they privatised the TAFE and the bricklayers, they had a college for bricklayers, and it fell over, and now we've got a shortage of bricklayers and no TAFE facility to teach bricklayers at Coffs Harbour. This is real, this is the truth, this is fact, that the Nationals have been trying to privatise TAFE, and that money has been sent to private schools at the disadvantage of public schools. This is actual fact, and I'll reverse that. There's a big spend they talk about, just about in the physical structure of public schools, but what we need is a bit of respect for our teachers and very polite.
This may appear to be more of a federal rather than a state issue, but it is something that will impact all of us and is of relevance, I believe. Where do you stand on the Uluru Statement from the Heart? Will you support the yes vote in the referendum?
I don't really think that's the question for this election. Right.
I'll answer it. I'll answer it.
Well, yeah, we're going to run out of time. We've got another question. We'll come back to you at the end if we've run out of the other questions.
Does your party, so I suppose this is mainly relevant to party members, accept donations from the gambling industry? And I acknowledge we meet on a licensed club. And what is your position on poker machines?
Oh, great question.
Troy.
Oh, stupid. I'm fiercely independent and I don't answer to any paymasters. There's no carpetbaggers holding my hand. And I had a lovely lady working for us that got addicted to poker machines. And I saw it firsthand. And they're evil things. They really are. And you don't want the fun police, and you don't, but these poker machines, and we don't need a mini casino in every town. So I'm against the poker machines after I see, and you've got to go from the gambling now on the phone gambling, and how it's destroying lives as well. And a lot of it's international as well. So I think there's a big clean-up there to do. I don't want to dictate to people what consenting adults do. If they have a couple of skewies and play a machine, I don't want to be that. But I'm just saying, unfortunately, there's way too many people in our society that get crippled from poker machines and gambling. So it needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Wow, we agree on something. I think some sort of gambling reform is really important. There are two facets to the current policies that have been talked about in state level. One of them is obviously addicted gamblers and gambling addiction itself, and the other one is money laundering. And I think either way, something needs to be done. We need to make sure that we're doing more, and it should be industry-led, as it has been suggested by the current state government. It's been industry-led, and the reform, which is not in yet, obviously requires a new state government to legislate it. But we will be listening to the industry players as well as the people that are on the ground and the people in the community.
No, the Greens don't take corporate donations from the gambling industry, and we don't take it from the fossil fuel industry or developers or any corporates at all. So we don't owe the big end of town anything. I think poker machines are a real issue in this country, and I think New South Wales has the second most poker machines after Las Vegas. So we've got a gambling problem here, and it does destroy families and it does destroy people's lives. So I think we need to look at those mechanisms that have been brought in about the cashless cards, so that there is a limit put on, and we need to start addressing that issue straight away. I think once again, the gambling industry has had a free hand to do whatever they like, and they actually understand the psychology of those machines and how they can make people addicted. So I think we absolutely need reform in that area, and hopefully we will get it after this election.
Okay, so the two parts to that question. The first one, obviously, I'm an independent, so I haven't received no donations from any clubs or any gambling bodies. The second one is I was actually a board of directors for an RSL club, a small RSL club. I was the treasurer. And I see the other side of the fence where it's a vital income stream for that club to continue to operate and give everybody the services that they are expecting right now. Now, I do agree that there needs to be some sort of reform or tighter reform in relation to money laundering, but I also believe you're all adults, you know what you're doing, make your own mind up. There's tough legislation already out there, and I don't think that needs to change at this point in time for the regular people that gamble. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Lloyd, I was born and bred in the area, which was once known as Timbertown, so I'd like to welcome all the candidates to Timbertown. That's what we used to have. Michael, first, Dominic, first to you. You made a statement that the Greens have not had any hand in stopping the timber industry. Let me tell you that come the end of June in Victoria, your party has stopped the timber industry completely.
If we just keep the question
Yes.
to Janet.
So I asked all candidates, what is their economic plan for the region, and how are we going to remain sustainable for housing if you won't let us in to log these forests? Because you can't plant the trees for the houses you need, so the developers won't have any worry building any more houses because they've got no more materials. And Troy, you pointed out there's no bricklayers, so how would you, if you're elected to this area, how would you be? What is your economic plan to fix the problems that we have? Thank you.
Mike.
I think the economic question is way too big for 1 minute. So I'm going to answer the economic question with respect to the timber industry, because you talked about timber as well. I've stated a fact before, it's $2.54 billion to New South Wales, and there's 5,700 workers employed. Now, obviously we need that money going around and circulating in the community. There are stats out there that show that money goes around 7 times. So I think that, with respect to the cost of living and the price of building houses, if we do not have that timber, which obviously there's a lot of softwood that goes into houses, but there's also beams, major beams that hold up, and also, like railway tracks and over bridges and stuff that has to be hardwood. And I think that, the cost of living, we're under such pressure right now. If you continue to make timber more expensive and also source it from external, like we're a $2 billion importer, net importer of timber in Australia, and I don't think that's a very good start.
Well, I think it's not a silver bullet answer. It's a silver buckshot answer. There's lots of things we can do. A pet project of mine, as far as jobs, is about 60 million brought into the local economy with an equine park that models Tamworth. A lot of people want those jobs, so that's one thing. The local abattoirs is only a domestic abattoirs. We can't get our cattle processed enough. There's huge opportunities there for a international licensed abattoirs. There's heaps of opportunity in jobs. Obviously, we ought to get really busy and plant a few trees. We've got to start today. And in the meantime, well, when they build out of steel, what do you need to make steel? You need coal and
No, you don't.
iron ore
No.
at the moment.
You need iron ore and some way of hydrolyzing it, not necessarily coal.
Is that going at the moment? Is like that technology
It's-
working?
yeah,
at the
it's-
moment?
it's beginning.
Or is actually?
Yeah.
Look, I know sometimes I'm on a hide into nothing when we're talking about the timber industry, and I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about the timber industry. The facts that I do know and would speak about is that timber industry is shrinking anyway. It is disappearing. We're seeing it going in Victoria, and we're also seeing it in Western Australia, where they're moving into sustainable plantation timber, which is much more labour intensive, and it's sustainable. And I think the other things for this region is we have some of the most biodiverse forests left on the planet. People will travel to see things like the Great Koala National Park, and I would not be surprised to see timber workers actually being involved in that process of putting the Great Koala National Park together. I think we have great opportunity in agriculture, especially regen agriculture, where people are growing trees as well for another income. And I think there's great opportunities in education and innovation. So I wouldn't underplay our region, but I would say that we are so lucky to live in an area that still has forest cover, and we still have clean rivers, we still have rich biodiversity, and they are such valuable assets into the future.
I see a few issues here, and a lot of it relates to housing and the fundamental reasons for me standing. Look, that's a very general question, and I don't claim to be a silver bullet for a solution for that overall question. But what I do know is that if we get our policing right, we're going to encourage more businesses, which is going to encourage more jobs, which is going to encourage more building. Now, I personally am building a house at the moment. I know exactly what it's like to have no timber and no supply of things. I was supposed to have been in my house last year, and it hasn't finished yet. Look, all I can say is I want to fix the issues in this electorate. I don't want to play party politics. I want to get everything right first. Fix the roads, get the police sorted out, get our health and emergency services sorted out, get the infrastructure back to where it should be, and then in turn, hopefully, we'll be able to generate more jobs and more houses for people. Now, it is a fact that last year alone, there was 250,000 Asians allowed into Australia and 250,000 Indians. That's 500,000. It's 500,000 people that need houses.
I'll take a question from the lady here. No, anyone here? Oh, okay, well, I'll take it from this gentleman. Just before you ask, the lady who handed me the question earlier this evening, are you here?
Yep.
That was you?
Yep.
Okay, I'll come up and see you in a moment. Go ahead.
Before I get to my question regarding the Hastings Regional Sporting Complex, I just need to give a little bit of background so the candidates sort of understand where I'm heading with the question. My name is Merv Burke. I was being a member of the local electorate. I was a school teacher, sports organiser for 35 years. And my reason for pushing this sporting complex is, firstly, I've seen enormous benefits to children. I'm involved with primary school over that time. There's a lot of children who only went to school because sport was one of the few positive things that they saw in it. So that's the background there in terms of why I'm pushing this. Also, I see great opportunities for sports tourism for the Wauchope community if this complex is built. It's called a regional sporting complex. It'll be a major complex if it ever gets built. Just a little bit of other background. 4 years ago, I asked all the candidates, including Melinda Pavey, to state their position on terms of support for this project. They were all in support of it, but not much happened for it. Melinda Pavey actually said at that meeting, I have quoted from the Wauchope Gazette, that she would push Port Macquarie Hastings Council to move forward with it and push for a grant application for some funding. So that obviously didn't happen. Nothing really has happened in 4 years. And Port Macquarie Hastings Council haven't really moved forward either. Where we are now, so I just wanted, whether this gets us anywhere, I don't know. I'm just going to ask the candidates in terms of their state, their support or otherwise for that project, and what would they do to see that project move forward into the construction phase.
Look, I'm a massive supporter of sport as well. I actually played a lot of rugby union in my day, played 236 games for Parramatta. So I see the value of sport. And when I was a teacher at Barrow, you're dead right. A lot of those kids turned up because sport was the key. So I absolutely see the value of sport for mental health, for building self-esteem. I think it's a great idea. I don't know the fine details of the stadium and why it hasn't been improved, but I'd be absolutely keen to have that conversation with people. And I think it does come back to, once again, councils struggling to cover those costs and those ongoing costs. So I think the state government really needs to step up and start to promote some of these, because I think you're right. I think there is opportunity in sports tourism. And we see Coffs Harbour going absolutely berserk with that at the moment.
Gotcha.
They want to have that conversation. I don't know too much about it, perfectly honest with you, but I'd like to know about it. I think sport is a very, very important part of children, adolescents and adults. I'm really surprised, actually no, I'm not surprised that nothing's happened over the last 4 years. Like I said, I'm not here to play party politics. I'm here to get stuff done. So if you want it done, come and get me in, let me fix it. Simple as that. I'm here to fix these issues. I'm not here to play party politics or abide by any of their rules or guidelines. We need stuff done here now. We need a lot more than just that done. But I've also got other questions that I'd like to ask the state government too. One of them in particular is how come we got the Port Macquarie Observatory got a $4.5 million grant from the Bushfire Recovery Fund? That's one question I'd like to ask the government. as well, because that money would have well and truly paid for that sporting complex. Or actually helped the people that needed it.
Yeah.
A little bit of experience. I really only wanted to work Canada and go fishing, but my mum thought she had an Olympic champion, so I think I've done every sport, hooker and the footy, swum for the school, played tennis for the school, A-grade water polo. And then my eldest daughter is a terrific athlete, and my youngest daughter, she's just a great player. She's just very good. And I've been to Coffs Harbour, I've been to Port, I've been to Wauchope when they have a touch footy comp there, and the amount of money that it brings in, the amount of activity, the amount of jobs, the spin-off is fantastic for us. And then the rest of the time, when these big events aren't on, we get the use of the facility. You can't grow your population and not give them the facilities. Unfortunately, the Nationals, they announce, but they don't deliver. So as I said, if you get me in there, the jobs with merit, I want delivery, and that's what I'll be after. So if your stadium's got legs, it's got the merit, then we'll get in and get it done.
On all those travels that I've been doing throughout the electorate that I talked about before, I have heard about this. I've consulted and listened to the community. I did hear about this project a few months ago, and so I came out and met with some members of the project. It is much more than 4.5 million, and it will see a significant investment in return. So I think that, you know, my position is really clear that I will support it. I have supported it. I have actually put it up as a costing for an election promise. I'm excited to see over the next couple of weeks those election commitments come out. So will I support it? 100%. It is in my election commitment requests. I have no idea how they will turn out.
Yeah, just a question on the timber. You say you want to support through plantations, and the Greens have never done anything to demise the timber industry, yet Greens and Labor together have continuously bid and taken up more of the regrowth timber that was there, as well as locked up plantations. That's here in Queensland. So can anybody answer that?
Troy.
Thanks for the question, Chair. Right from the get-go, I've told you that I support the timber industry and that we can have both. And if you just lock up more country in a big koala park, we're going to have what happened before. That's a catastrophic bushfire that just incinerates and sends all our critters and flora to extinction. So we need to have people in there managing the forest. We had stockmen in there before that used to burn the undergrowth. We had trails in there so we could get to country. Locking it up all the way back from Bob Carr has only led to an acceleration of extinction and all your bushes full of feral animals and noxious weeds. So it's an absolute failure at the moment. So we can do heaps. And as I said, we have the rainfall and we have the country. We get busy growing trees and we manage what we've got. We can grow our industry, and we should be getting the coin for having the biodiversity. Right? I reckon there's all this money for biodiversity. Well, the timber industry should be getting it when they grow Australian natives biodiverse timber and not radiata pine, which is simply just a desert.
Can you just repeat the question for us?
I'd like to know what you're going to do. Say, Greens have a policy to transition to plantation. 30 million will do nothing. 30 million will buy 2 or 3 farms. 30 million is just a joke. But what are you going to do? You say you're going to create plantations, you're already locking them up as well. Like, it's growing, it's a crop. It's harvested, replanted, grown again, but you're still locking that up. So there's no, what's your policy on that?
Yeah, the truth is, I think I support use of plantation forests, and I'm really keen to see if we can get a better outcome. The best scenario would be for timber to be used as a renewable resource. So I think at the moment there's a mixed harvesting scenario with both plantation and a small amount of native forest logging, which is rotated. As I said before, there's less than 10% in state forests, 50% of that is conserved, and 1% of what's left is rotationally harvested. So, I said the stat before, we're a $2 billion importer of timber, and without us harvesting here, either our price goes up or we import more from overseas in less regulated environments, from Malaya and Borneo and Brazil or any of the timber industries, and it's less regulated. And what about the other species of flora and fauna over there as well?
First, the Greens have got no power. We don't have any numbers. We don't have numbers in Parliament to lock in. So I don't know.
Side with Labor.
But they haven't got the numbers either at the moment. They haven't had it for the last 12 years.
Boss can't have it.
And Labor still support forestry. I suppose, if you look at the tree, if you look at the history of forestry, you look at the size of the trees that we once saw, they are very rare. We're seeing them now. So it sort of goes down to whether you actually believe in climate change as well. And I think there's opportunity for the timber industry to actually start to be, someone that starts to grow trees rather than chop them down. I think there is opportunity for that, because what we are seeing in the climate, whether you want to believe it or not, is that we are seeing bigger fires, we are seeing bigger floods, we are seeing more intense droughts. And this is going to continue on until we start to work against it, to sort that out. I think the skill package that you guys have is going to be what we need into the future. So the Greens aren't against workers, and that's why we talk about a transition, but that transition has to be something that's going to be sustainable. Your industry has been shrinking, and it's got nothing to do with the Greens. Your industry has been shrinking because it's the dollar. The Greens have got no power to close anything down.
That's a lie.
Greens aren't in power.
Okay.
National Green power.
Yeah, look, I have to strongly disagree with that. I think the Greens have got a lot to do with it. Look, I think you guys already know my position about the timber industry. I'm not going to go there again. I've already said it 3 times. I don't know what side the government's going to be formed yet, so it's going to be very difficult to answer your question accurately. But what I do know is that I'm on your side. I plan on, right? Yep. I plan on backing you guys 100%. Now, it's going to be very, very difficult because we don't know what side is going to form government yet. But we can strategise with your industry bodies. I'm happy to meet with anybody when elected. Happy to meet with all of you, actually. And let's get this sorted out, because I'm for your jobs, for your families' futures. As a local part of this industry, we need you guys. But we also need more support from all of you to support Australian manufacturing. Now,
Manufacturing, yes.
I own a furniture store.
Australian timber, you don't have Australian paper.
That's exactly right, yeah. Thanks to...
My question comes in 2 parts. First part is the new Maxwell Hospital. Now, Linda Payne was Minister for Roads at the time when the hospital was open. She did not build or order an exit ramp for people going to the hospital from the south. Now, where I live, a lot of people have huge issues in timeways having to go through Maxwell at 50 k's an hour. So the first question with that is, will you all support building an exit ramp to the new Maxwell Hospital? Second thing is, the Nationals promised that there would be a CT unit and possibly an MRI unit in that hospital 4 years ago. That hasn't happened. Will you support that?
Michael.
I'd have to take advice from Transport New South Wales on the reasons why there's not an exit ramp there for the the northern bound people from the southern end. And I think that they are the experts in that area, and I'd have to take advice from them. With respect to a CT and a, was it MRI? Yeah, again, you know, New South Wales Health and the local, so it's not just the cost of buying the appliance and installing it, it's also having the skill sets, the man, and then, you know, that becomes a greater drain on the cost of the purses of the local health district. So in principle, I definitely support it. The better access to diagnostics, because honestly, as a health professional, I know that there's clear evidence out there that being treated earlier leads to better results. So do I support it in principle? I'd have to see the local health district cost it out and look for their support before I fully support it.
Well, I'm very well known to the Maxwell community. I lived there for most of my life in the Bowraville area until recently moving to Kempsey. So I'm very, very familiar with the Maxwell Hospital and the Maxwell bypasses. Now, I believe, I'll have to just double check this because we're on film, but I was told that the reason why there was no grant was because the then Minister for Roads wanted to stay under budget. Now, I believe that to be the case because it doesn't make any legal sense to not have that on-ramp, off-ramp there. I also am in favour of a 24-hour police station in the Nambucca Valley. I'll come back to that because there was a proposal to put that next to the hospital, which makes really good sense. But the problem I see here is the people that have been in power for so long now, they're very, very good at these ideas and putting these ideas. They're great at buying these appliances. But you have to have the skill set and the money to encourage the doctors to work there. Now, the fundamental problem that I've seen is that they're all really good at buying the stuff, but not good at actually having the people to run it. Thank you.
Yeah, look, that's the first time I've heard of that, and it sounds crazy to me, but it's not a surprise because public hospitals have been underfunded for the last 12 years through the Liberal National Coalition. And I think the only way that we're going to get these services in, the only way we're going to deal with the housing crisis, the only way we're going to deal with the education crisis is that the people at the top end of the town who are making record profits during this time, during COVID, need to pay their share. That is the only way that we're going to make up that money because there is not that money in the Treasury. So, you know, that's got to be the answer. That has got to be the answer, that we start to look at a more progressive tax system, as you see in all the Scandinavian countries who have very strong education and health facilities. So we absolutely deserve that in the regions. We shouldn't be left out. So I would say yes to both of those.
Thank you for your question, Peter. Now, there's history with this. The road was built for budget, not for purpose. The Maxwell problem is one of a whole litany of problems. And, you know, the Nationals have been a catastrophic failure all the way along. And we'll talk briefly about the cuttings first proposed for Coffs Harbour and the Barrelaro backflip to get the tunnels. Coming back to Maxwell, of course I support it. We also support that there's a pedestrian bridge added to the overpass at Inches Road, where they've done a subdivision, and now there's all these children going around a blind corner with no pedestrian bridge to get over the overpass to come up to the school bus. And the state won't run the bus down to them at this stage. So all along and then there's the road noise, which is supposed to be noise proofing, and that wasn't done. So the whole road is a dog's breakfast, a packet of poo ticket, and it falls right on the Nationals and our local member that was the road minister, etc. So I'll be in there fighting like a bag of cats to fix all these problems.
How good's that road?
Just before I ask the question, I'll let people know here, I'm from South West Rocks. All this development we've got up there, you just cannot believe it. And what I'd like to ask you guys, what do you intend to do about all the development at South West Rocks without the infrastructure to support it? And we have got, it's just going backwards. It's a joke, and it's time Nationals, the coalition government, they've pushed 60% of all the development in Kempsey Shire out to South West Rocks. I think if that's the case, I think that the state government should be funding all the infrastructure, not the council. What are your thoughts on that?
Joshua.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And that's a really good example. Stewart's Point's another very good example where they desperately need drainage and then they desperately need sewage. It's almost like a third world country out there. And there's been promises after promises after promises for delivery and absolutely nothing. It does come back to the zombie DA question a little bit. But I'm of a big support. It's essential that DAs go back to council full stop. The state government have got to get their hands out of it because that's where all the corruption happens. You know, we're seeing every night you see someone corrupt on TV from the state government or the federal government, and they're all party related, all party people. Now I'm done with that. I'm sick and tired of seeing corruption in our government. You know, we all pay taxes. We all deserve to have a better system, and I'm going to deliver that. Thanks.
Righto, my background is about, has been about 6 days a fortnight down at South West Rocks. And get around a bit while my partner goes to work in the aged care. So I have a fair bit of background about this. The zombie DNAs, South West Rocks been absolutely smashed. I'd like to know where all those developer contributions went. The local council is broke, absolutely flat broke. They've got to have all their money to pay their general manager about $350,000 a year. Local council's not funded properly from federal government, right? You've got another 3.7 rate rise coming through. The federal government has to step up to fund your council properly. And instead of the dribble in of pork barrelling by the Nationals to buy elections and give themselves a positive profile in their local rag, we need to have these infrastructure put in. You cannot jam all that development into these, like Crescent Head, South West Rocks, soon to be Stewart's Point. You cannot jam it in without the infrastructure. You just can't do it. So I'll get the funding.
Look, the answer to that is that we need local, the powers to be handed back to the local community and back to local councils. And that used to happen once upon a time, believe it or not. Communities, if they said that they didn't want something in their community, they had the power to actually do that. So the planning laws need to be changed. They are too friendly to developers. They do a tick box exercise around what people want and they don't listen to communities. And I think the concern from South West Rocks and Crescent Head and Stewart's Point and all of the coastal communities is real. And people are really, really concerned about not being able to get into a doctor now. How are they going to go when there's another 500 people in those? And we know that the majority of those people are coming from Sydney to retire. They are going to need more medical needs, and they're not going to be there. So this is a lack of planning and a lack of thought about what it's actually going to do, and it's all about money. So it's got to change. It's got to go back to the planning laws. Got to go back to local decisions because actually we are the people that know what's needed in our towns and communities.
Yeah, I think most definitely we need to involve local councils, on all development applications, as well as obviously there's some state government ones for the larger developments. And it does come back to that infrastructure question. And do we have sufficient infrastructure for the development application itself? Now, when you talk about multiple long-standing development applications that are being called zombie DAs and all concentrated in one area at a short space of time, I think the demand on the infrastructure in that area is pretty significant. And so should we have changes to the legislation around development applications? I think yes, and we must involve some sort of local council. I agree with you. Involvement, and that allows them to plan for the infrastructure that needs to be there to sufficiently support the overall development of a town.
Thank you. My question is around fires. The devastating 2019 fires ripped through here, and unfortunately we know we have to expect more, and we have to be prepared for more fires and increasingly intense fires in our future. What is your bushfire policy? Where can we read it right now, tonight? And do you support more paid firefighters for fire and rescue, for New South Wales fire services, and for forestry? More full-time and part-time employees.
Michael. Yes, I do support more firefighters, sorry. Fire and Rescue New South Wales this year had $862 million this year to spend, and that equaled 415 new firefighters. So yes, I do support new firefighters in the fire and rescue realms. It is happening. My bushfire policy, I wouldn't say that I have an exact policy at the moment. I am a fiery myself, both at a brigade level and at a district level. I have seen firsthand the devastation of those fires that we're talking about from 19 and 20, and I am concerned that with the amount of wet seasons that we've had, come a few dry seasons, we are at risk again. What the fires showed, I think, in some areas was that if we don't get to them early, they can become catastrophic because the land is unmanaged. And I'm not a fan of locking up our national forest and national parks, and because of the overgrowth over roads and stopping access to get to fires, as well as providing conduits to jump natural fire breaks.
I've just got 2 points to that question, and the first one is, yeah, absolutely devastating. I had that Saturday, I had every single customer in my shop had lost their whole everything. Had lost their whole everything. There was not a dry eye in my. Now, my question is, why aren't we and actually backburning properly? We should. That's the first point. The second point is, I am seeing an extraordinary waste of public money go through vehicles that are going to auction, but perfectly capable of being recycled to upgraded rural fire service vehicles. And I've seen firsthand vehicles that are not even roadworthy. Yet I'm seeing so many of them go through the auctions, the cents in the dollar. Now, I want to introduce a recycling program, not just for that, not just for the rural fire service, but for patient transport as well. That's another issue. I really wish I had time to talk about that, because it doesn't exist in regional New South Wales. Sorry.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we need more paid firefighters. I think it's shown that asking people to volunteer and relying purely on volunteers is not good enough. I think there should be incentives for people to actually join the RFS. I'd like to see more young people joining the RFS, and I think that should be part of something that's in the school curriculum. I'd even go as far as to say we actually should pay them in school-based traineeship sort of model, because there is a crisis. And so I think we can't rely on that anymore. I agree with that we need those cool burns, that mosaic burning that our First Nations people used to do. We need to be a lot more clever about how we do stuff. And also, as Michael says, an experienced firefighter, we need to get to those fires as quick as possible. So we need that technology, like drones, etc., to ensure that those fires don't get out of control.
Correct. Right. Speaking from first-hand experience, unfortunately, we lost half our place in a fire. I'll go back to labour. Right? I'll take what works from wherever. Bill Shorten wanted those firebombing aircraft. He wanted us to have our own fleet. Elvis was one of them, so I remember that. Kempsey Airport is underutilised, and it could have that fleet of aircraft ready. Unfortunately, we haven't had a dam built in our area for about 34 years to scoop the water up, to go early and attack the fires like they do in America. They get in California, they get in and they go early. They have troops that are trained to go in, and they pay them well. So letting graziers back into timber leases And after the Indigenous people, when all the graziers would line up the rubbish that was left at the end of winter, and that got rid of the. So we never had those fires. We traditionally never had those fires when we had the management. We had loggers in there that kept the roads open, so we had the fire breaks and the access. So just go back to what we were doing and do it properly before Bob Carr locked us out.
Just gonna make one before we just get back to
I know I'm lucky last. I'd like to know if you guys know anything about low-cost housing here in Wauchope. If you know that there is a situation that was built by voluntary labour, the material was all donated. It was built in 1965 up the other end of town. It houses about 20 people at the moment, and they get everything. They have 5 meals a week, hot meals, 2 course. They get all their power, their water. We get no government aid whatsoever. It's all just run by a voluntary committee, which is owned actually by Port Macquarie Hastings Council, and it's under a trustee. You guys are aware of that sort of thing goes on? I do believe there's another one down in Junee somewhere, but I haven't heard any more about it, so I don't know whether it's run the same or not. We pay all our bills. And my question is really, did you know about it?
back to number 1.
Yeah.
Short answer is no, I didn't know about it. But I do know that there is a desperate need for low-income housing in our electorate. That's it's absolutely desperate. Like I was trying to touch on earlier when I ran out of time, we have had over 500,000 people come into our country just last year alone from 2 countries. Now, they need housing, they need jobs, just like all the rest of us. Now, we need to keep up with that infrastructure, and we desperately need low-income housing, and that's something that I would like to focus on. My company personally, and me personally, we support a lot of the domestic violence victims in our electorate. It's not something I like to publicise, but we work with some of the organisations, and we do a lot for them. So I have a real soft spot for especially domestic violence victims, but also the fatherless and widows. So I really want to make sure that we as a government are giving you what you need. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, much appreciated. I didn't know exactly about the one you're talking about. We had one similar in the Kempsey Shire, and Kempsey Shire shut it down and sold it because they're in about they don't do community work on it. So very much appreciate that your model is working, and I'm sure given some funding and support, we can replicate that. We are a rich enough society that we can have a safety net for those people that fall through. I don't know how many single dads I've met in caravan parks that have been totally gutted and sort of given up because it was such a hard road to get back. I'm one of the fortunate ones that actually did make it back, and it wasn't easy. So we have a population of mature ladies that are becoming homeless. I saw affordable accommodation coming into Wauchope, and it's a tent down near the railway line. Right? There's going to be more of that and more people in cars. And council, it's like they turn the taps off, so you can't even have access to fresh water. So I think as a society, there's so much more that we can do. And one of the things is have people in employment, but also a safety net.
Yes, great question. So I do know that there's 12 apartments next door housing 20 people. It was opened this month, and I think that it's a wonderful social housing project for Wauchope. Hopefully, you know, encouraging some older people to downsize after the kids have left home and provide bigger houses for other people. And to be honest, yes, I do know about Hastings Court. Again, I've travelled this electorate and I've been working really hard to find out and meet people and yeah, I'm excited to say that the volunteers in Wauchope make that happen. It is a wonderful community project. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I cannot applaud the community enough for their investment in time and money and materials and the coordination of it. It is just a wonderful project.
No, I didn't know about it, but I would absolutely love to hear more about it because they are the solutions that we need, the ones that work. But, you know, the reality is, you know, housing is a human right. And we've got to this stage because we have not been building enough social housing and we've not been building enough affordable housing. I've never seen people who have got jobs now struggling to find anywhere rental or accommodation. I've never seen as many people on the streets. When I was the mayor in Bellingen, we did we put a complex together with the Freemasons and a local housing group. We're going to now house 40 older women in an old nursing home with their own separate units. It's a redevelopment. We brought that to the state and federal government to sign. I think they're the things that we need. We need these real actions that are actually happening, and I think it's tough when you have to rely on volunteers, but thank you so much for the stuff that you do, because I know as a councillor and mayor, our places would fall over without the volunteers that we've got in our region. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
We've run out of time for questions. If I didn't get to you, come and see me after the meeting and I'll send your questions to the emails of each of the candidates, and I'm sure they'll get back to me with an answer and I'll get to you. So I'm going to pass it over to Mert now and give the candidates a chance to wrap up.
All right, so thank you everyone. Thanks for the evening. We're just going to come into the kind of closing remarks now. So each candidate will have 2 minutes just to sum up their policies and whatever they want to say. So I'll just hand it on to Troy.
Right, it's predicted most likely that the government's going to change and you'll have a Labor government for the state. And having been being a safe national seat, they're not really interested in having any funding come our way. So the Nationals have failed, we all know that. And I suggest that you give an independent a go. And if we take the examples of Phil Donato in Orange, Roy Butler in Barwon, Helen Dalton down in the Murray, and a few other that independents will hold the balance of power most likely, and we can be very effective for our communities, and that's what I propose to do. Money and delivery. Thank you.
Yeah, like I spoke earlier on, I think the big issues for us are that we need to empower local communities. We need to make sure that we're protecting our amazing environment, and we also need to make sure that we are dealing with cost of living. I don't think this country has ever been in the state that we are now, and I think the solutions need to come right across the political spectrum. I think my 10 years in local government show that, you know, that I am someone that delivers. The work that I've done within Bellingen Council and within local government in New South Wales speaks to me standing up for my people in my community, and I will do that right to the end. I think I'm the only one with experience here in terms of dealing with other community, and the only one that understands the legislation that we can get better changes from. And I think, as I said very early on, the Greens policies are all out there for people to have a look at. I think it absolutely will be a hung parliament, and I think that'll be good for democracy. So I think we need a change, because if you're happy with the way things are, then you need to continue voting the way you do. But if you need change, if you want more housing, if you want to see the power back in communities, and you want to see our clean rivers and our forests protected, then you need to vote Green.
Well, firstly, I just wanted to thank everybody for your time tonight. Like I said before, I'm the fix-it guy. If you've got a problem, I want to fix it. Like I said, we've got problems with police. We desperately need police. We need 18 more straight away, and then we need a 24-hour police station in the Upper Valley. We also need to get our roads fixed. I know, we all know there's dirt roads around here. This is 2023, not 1900. We need more support from the state government for local investment into fixing our roads. We also need to get our infrastructure up to speed. We need to get Stewart's Point fixed. We need to get that on-ramp sorted out. We need more investment into hospitals. And we also need an ICAC inquiry into the matter. We continue to vote for the Nationals. They just want the seat. I can't see that they are interested in you personally. I am. I want to fix your problem. Come to me. Even if I don't get in, I will try and help you. If you've got some sort of issue, we'll take it to the guys, take it to the elected, and we'll get it sorted out one way or another. So vote for independent because we need to hold the balance of power. Whichever way it's going to go, it's unknown. But we need to hold the balance of power. So please vote independent. Thank you.
I'm going to echo the thoughts that it takes a lot of time and effort to get here, and I really value your time. I believe that I'm showing by my effort. I am really putting in to show you how much I will value your voice and how I'll represent that. I do have a background in representation and a lot of experience in that field, and I think I've gone through a fair bit of it today. I'd like to talk about the police really quickly. It hasn't come up yet, but I have actually met with the Minister for Police and the local superintendent, and they have indicated that there are no more police to be allocated until November. So you won't get 18 police immediately, and that if we man a police station 24/7, it'll take 6 police off the beat, and I'm going to advocate for more police when they're available, and we'll make sure that we have operational requirements as a guiding light. We have seen record spending on roads and bridges with the Nationals and Liberal government. All you've got to do is travel up that highway and you'll see the record spending. I do agree that cost of living is a major component of what we're facing at the moment, and it is hurting everyone's back pocket. Obviously, housing and affordable housing, both housing availability, which wasn't spoken about that much today, and housing affordability, I think are key parts of this election. I think that it's really important that the policies that we're putting to you are funded and costed rather than just indicated that that's what they'll stand for. So I'm making sure that I'm giving you facts, and that's why I have done a lot of work and I'm looking, down at my notes and showing you actual facts. So yes, thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate the chance to talk to you, and I'll be hanging around for a little bit afterwards to have a chat.
So thank you very much. Thank you for all the candidates, and then we'll conclude the evening there.
She's on the mend, she's on the mend.
Thank you.